You know, traditional markets, or souks, they're really the vibrant hearts of so many historic cities. But let's be honest, in our age of globalization, they're facing a huge threat. I mean, how do you protect these amazing living cultural centers without just turning them into museums, frozen in time? It's a massive question. And it's one that Dr. Mona El-Basha tackles head-on in her fantastic research from the Mansoura Engineering Journal. So let's dive into her really innovative approach.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll get into the big dilemma souks are facing today. Then, we'll look at this new, value-based way of thinking about conservation, and we'll see it in action with the Souk El-Turk in Alexandria. We'll break down how they identified what's important, what that led to in terms of proposals, and then we'll wrap up by asking, hey, could this be the model for other places?
Okay, first up, the souk's modern dilemma. And really, it's about being caught between history and globalization. See, these souks aren't just places to buy things. They are these incredible, complex urban spaces stuck in this tug-of-war between their history and all the pressures of the modern world.
And that really brings us to the heart of the problem, the big question that Dr. El-Basha's research is trying to answer. It's something that experts all over the world are grappling with. How do you save the life and soul of a place, and not just, the empty buildings?
So here's the conflict, laid out plain and simple. On one hand, you've got the traditional souk. It's this amazing mix of the tangible, the buildings, the winding alleys, and the intangible, the crafts, the social connections, the whole identity of the place. But then, on the other side, you've got these modern pressures. We're talking competition from shiny new shopping malls, big economic changes, and even conservation efforts that frankly focus way too much on just the bricks and mortar, completely missing the living, breathing culture inside.
All right, so given that problem, the paper puts forward a totally different solution, a new approach to conservation that, well, it moves beyond just looking at the physical stuff.
And this is it. The core of this whole idea is a really simple but powerful shift. Instead of just asking, which buildings do we save, the question becomes, what do we actually value about this place? And then, how do we protect those values? It's a whole new way of thinking, where the real significance of the site, its history, its social role, its economic life, is what drives the entire plan. It's a game changer.
So to make this practical, the approach breaks down value into two big buckets. First, you've got cultural values. This is basically everything that gives a place its soul, right? Its history, the way it looks and feels, its social importance. Then you have the economic values. This is the more financial side of things. Commerce, tourism, and how it helps define the city's brand.
Okay, so that's the theory. But how does it actually work in the real world? Well, the research puts it to the test with a fantastic case study, the Souk El-Turk in Alexandria, Egypt. We're talking about a living, breathing market that goes all the way back to the 17th century.
So how'd they go about it? The methodology here was super rigorous. First, they dug into the souk's history and its urban context. Then, and this is key, they worked with the community to figure out what the heritage values actually were. After that, they mapped those values to real, tangible things in the souk, ran a full SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and then developed their conservation plan. It's this step-by-step process that makes the final proposals so solid.
So what did all that work actually uncover? This is where we get to the good stuff. What really makes Souk El-Turk so significant? Get this. A survey asked visitors and merchants how they felt about the souk. An incredible 69% of them said they see it as a testament to Alexandria's history, a source of local pride. Think about that. For them, this isn't just a market. It's literally a part of their identity.
And this table is where it all comes together. It shows how the study connects these big, abstract values to actual, physical things. So the historical value, you can literally see it in the organic, winding streets. The aesthetic value, you can feel it in the intimate, human scale of the spaces. The social value, that comes from seeing the shops and crafts all working together. This mapping process, this is the absolute core of the value-based approach.
Okay, so with this really deep understanding of what makes the souk tick, the research doesn't just stop there. It builds a practical roadmap for action. This isn't just theory. These are real, actionable ideas for how to keep the souk alive and well.
First up, they propose creating a kind of protective bubble around it. By officially calling it a zone of special character, any new buildings or changes would have to follow specific rules. We're talking about respecting the traditional scale and design. Basically, it stops a giant modern building from popping up and ruining the whole vibe.
Next, what about the buildings themselves? The idea here is simple. Don't let them fall apart. Instead of being empty, they should be repurposed for things that actually fit the Souq's character. This way, the historic buildings stay alive and useful, which is crucial for keeping that spirit of the place intact.
Now this one, I think, is just brilliant. It's about protecting that intangible heritage we talked about. The proposal is to set up training centers to teach young people the traditional crafts you can only find in the souk. This does two amazing things. It passes those skills down to a new generation, and it makes sure the unique products of the market don't just fade away.
And finally, money. To make sure the souk can actually thrive, the research calls for a financing system designed specifically for the small businesses and craftspeople there. I mean, these people are the lifeblood of the market, right? By supporting them directly, you build a stronger local economy from the ground up, and that makes the whole conservation effort sustainable for the community itself.
So that's Souq El-Turk. But what does it all mean for other places? Let's pull back and think about the bigger picture. Could this be a model for the future of heritage conservation everywhere? I think this quote from Dr. El-Basha's conclusion just says it all perfectly. Heritage conservation should not mean preserving static historical assets, but rather its spirit and life. It's not about freezing a place in time. It's about managing change in a way that lets the soul of the place survive. And that means you have to treat the social and cultural aspects as being just as important as the buildings themselves.
And really, that's the bottom line here. What this paper is screaming from the rooftops is that we have to stop looking at heritage so narrowly. If our decisions are only about short-term economic gains, we risk completely wiping out the very identity that makes these places special to begin with. We'd be killing the goose that lays the golden eggs, essentially.
So in the end, the research leaves us with this final, powerful thought. If a city's heritage is its memory, how do we make sure that our cities don't get amnesia as they chase after progress? The beauty of Dr. El-Basha's work is that it doesn't just leave us with the question. It gives us a real, practical toolkit for remembering what's important and for helping our cities evolve without losing their souls.